In the quiet winter mornings of Calgary, English once sounded sharp and perfect, shaped by rules, accent drills, and flawless pronunciation. But something began to change. In classrooms and living rooms across Canada, a new sound was rising, warmer, slower, filled with heart. People began to notice that this new English carried a hint of music, and that music came from somewhere unexpected, the islands of the Philippines. Thousands of Canadians had started learning English online, not from Britain or New York, but from Cebu, Davao, and Manila. Their teachers spoke gently, laughed easily, and corrected mistakes with kindness. They didn't just teach pronunciation, they asked about family. They prayed before class, and when lessons ended they said, "Take care, see you tomorrow." What began as language lessons became conversations about life. Among those watching this quiet shift was Margaret Lewis, an English instructor from Calgary. For 20 years she had taught grammar and structure, believing that good English was about precision. But one day, a student named Liza changed everything. When Liza spoke about her grandmother, in imperfect but heartfelt English, the classroom fell silent. Margaret wrote that night in her journal, "It wasn't English that moved me, it was the heart inside the English." That single moment planted a question she couldn't ignore. Had she been teaching the language, but missing its soul? Margaret's curiosity turned into obsession. She searched online and found videos of Filipino teachers, voices warm, faces kind. There was laughter, patience and grace in every sentence. One comment beneath a video stopped her cold. "My Filipino tutor taught me more than grammar, she taught me gratitude." That night Margaret realized she wasn't watching lessons, she was watching love in action. Margaret signed up for a class, using the name Maggie from Calgary. Her tutor was a woman named Ate Joy from Iloilo. The first thing Joy said wasn't, "Let's begin." It was, "Good morning, Maggie. How are you feeling today?" That simple question, about feelings, felt strange to a teacher used to correction and rules, but it disarmed her. Joy's warmth crossed oceans. Week by week, Margaret began to rediscover English, not as a subject, but as a connection. Joy taught her that language isn't about perfection, it's about kindness in sound. Months later, Joy invited Margaret to visit the Philippines. Despite her doubts, she went. At Iloilo Airport, Joy was waiting, holding a sign that read, "Welcome, Ma'am Maggie." The two hugged like old friends. Margaret saw a country alive with color and contradiction, tricycles racing past churches, children laughing in narrow streets, music spilling from every doorway. Everywhere she went, people spoke English with emotion, not to impress, but to connect. Joy's mother greeted her with a blessing. "God bless you, ma'am." In that moment, Margaret understood. English here was not a tool, it was a gift. Joy took Margaret to a small public school by the sea. The roof was made of tin, the benches were carved from wood. A little girl stood up to read a story. Her English was broken, but her eyes shone with courage. When she finished, the class erupted in applause. Margaret whispered, "In Canada, we don't clap for mistakes." Joy smiled softly. "We don't clap for perfection," she said. "We clap for effort." That line stayed with Margaret forever, because here, progress mattered more than pride. Back in Calgary, Margaret carried the Philippines in her heart. She placed a small wooden sign on her desk. It read, "Teach with the heart, not the tongue." Her first day back, she began class differently. "Before we start," she said, "tell me one thing you're grateful for today." At first, her students hesitated. Then they smiled. Soon, grammar exercises became conversations. Vocabulary lessons turned into reflections. And when students spoke, they didn't just practice English, they shared themselves. Margaret's classroom became an example. Other teachers noticed the change, the lightness, the laughter, the understanding. Soon, the Canadian Department of Education launched a pilot program, Project Heartspeak, a collaboration between Canadian schools and Filipino tutors. At its launch, one Filipino educator said, "When we teach English, we don't try to make our students sound American. We help them sound like themselves, only kinder." And for the first time in decades, Canada was learning not just grammar, but gratitude. Today, thousands of Canadians unknowingly speak with a touch of Filipino rhythm, softened tones, gentle affirmations, phrases like, "It's okay, try again." They don't copy the accent, they carry the emotion. Because what spread across classrooms wasn't a new pronunciation, it was a new philosophy. Speak with heart, listen with empathy. Years later, Margaret retired. Her students gave her a framed photograph, a picture of Joy's small classroom by the sea, with the words, "From Iloilo to Calgary, thank you for teaching us how to feel English." Margaret smiled through tears. "For years I thought I was teaching English," she said. But it turns out, English was teaching me. From the islands of the Philippines to the classrooms of Canada, a quiet revolution continues. Because in the end, the world doesn't need more perfect English, it needs English spoken with love. And somewhere, across the ocean, a tutor's gentle voice still says, "Good morning. Are you ready to shine today?"